and welcome to Love's Inner Voice, the path of self-discovery. I'm Brenda L. Balding, your host, and so happy to be here, blessed to be here with you in this session. We have a beautiful person. Her name is Gail Weiner, and we're going to be talking about overcoming dating challenges in midlife and beyond, and doing it mindfully. That's coming later. We'll meet Gail later, so stay tuned. Right now, let's do our heart breathing. And for those of you that are new, we breathe in light and love and pretend it's coming into our heart, then into our lungs and down to our core. Slowly and effortlessly. And as we breathe out to the light, breathe out anything that no longer serves you today or that you're ready to release. So let's listen to some beautiful, soft music as we do some heart breathing. Breathe in to the count of 4 or 5, whatever works for you. And breathe out. And just let it calm your body, set for the day or evening. And breathe out anything that no longer serves or that you're ready to let go of. Put it in the loving hands of the divine, whatever that is for you. Breathe in. Breathe out. Notice if you're feeling any change in your body, any calming, and just honor that and be in gratitude. Oh, I love doing that. Thank you for being with me and for staying with me. Now, I'd like to give you a little promo of an upcoming show with Kathleen Joan, and you will also get a distance Reiki healing from Kathleen and myself. So here's a little promo for a show coming up. And Brenda L. Balding here. The L stands for Love's Inner Voice, the path of self-discovery. Hello, my friends. Brenda L. Balding here. The L stands for Love's Inner Voice, the path of self-discovery, my TV show on I Have Today TV network. And I want to tell you about an upcoming show with Kathleen Joan. And we'll be talking about the healing that we receive when we welcome in the divine feminine. And we'll also be sharing a Reiki healing for about 5 to 8 minutes. So join us Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Blessings as you walk through your day. Be well. Bye for now. There's lots of other previously filmed shows that you can check out as well. So my guest, yes, I did mention my guest, Gail Weiner. She's in LMFT. She's a psychodynamic therapist with 40 years of experience helping individuals and couples to thrive. She speaks widely on relationship issues, has led empowered dating groups, written for 4 date stories, and taught graduate level human sexuality. As a certified writing teacher, Gail also uses writing as a transformational tool. She's the creator of DateWise, and you'll learn more about that in our conversation. A unique program designed for singles to use the search for love as a path for growth, healing, and empowerment. Clients learn to approach dating as a training ground to develop the skills of self-awareness for lasting intimacy. Gail has won awards as Best LMFT, Best Couples Therapist, and Best Mental Health Service Providers in the Pacific Sun and Marin Independent Journal. Please welcome Gail Weiner, LMFT. So glad you're here, Gail. Tell us a little bit more about your approach to life these days.
Oh my goodness, my approach to life. Well, I adore my work, and it's a thrill and an honor to help people move past fears and limitations to live the life they were meant to have.
That's really beautiful. Tell us a little bit more about what that looks like.
Well, a lot of people may be familiar with therapy, but different therapists handle challenges in different ways. What the psychodynamic piece means as you mentioned in the introduction, for me, what it means to be a psychodynamic therapist is childhood really matters and stays with us. And so addressing that part of our experience is often the key to unlocking your capacity as a grown person. So I pay attention to childhood, to emotion, and I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. One of the things that you've mentioned, and that when we talked a couple of weeks ago, is that there are a lot of programs and approaches for finding love and loving relationships, and that you work with single women and help them overcome their biggest challenges. I would love to have our audience hear more about the uniqueness of that.
Yeah. Well, I developed a program really on the heels of my own divorce and attempts to find a lasting, satisfying relationship. And I did a lot of studying and workshops, went back into my own therapy. And at the end of that process, honed in on a couple things that I think are the key issues to deal with when you want to change the quality of your romantic relationships. And those things are temperament, emotional attachment, imago repetitions, and then writing a great online profile and learning how to interpret what you see in other people's profiles, and then setting the relationship off in a solid way by how you communicate early on. So these are the areas that the DateWise program focuses on, based on really research-backed evidence of what really works. And I developed it. No one else does it this way. So it's totally unique.
That's really cool. Is it therapy, coaching, or both, DateWise?
Yeah, I would say it's both. The therapy piece is, let's understand what hasn't worked so far and how you've approached dating and romance. That's the therapy piece. And the coaching piece has to do with homework assignments. What are you working on this week? Small experiments in different behaviors, and then paying attention to what happens in real life when you try something differently.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very active, conscious experimentation that happens week to week.
Mm-hmm. And how much you mentioned earlier about our childhood, and it's still, our little girl is still part of us, our teenager is still part of us. How do those beliefs, core beliefs is what I call them, affect all of this in young, midlife, and older women as we're going through? Because all of them, I'm sure, are looking for, some of us maybe not romance, just a loving relationship. And I think that DateWise can help with that too, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, let me give a quick example of emotional attachment styles. A lot of people are familiar with this. There are three, essentially three basic ones. You can have a secure attachment, anxious attachment, or an avoidant attachment. And these come from how your caretakers related to you when you were growing up and getting your idea about who you were as a person and what you can and cannot expect from other people. So, of course, that follows through in how you treat all the relationships in your life. So, if someone had a parent who was sometimes available and sometimes not, sometimes attentive and loving, sometimes not. And that can be for all kinds of reasons. The parent has their own emotional issues. There may be addiction, there may be abuse, there may be more subtle things around availability. So if, sorry, just had a little tech getting off. There we go. When somebody is inconsistent with you in this vulnerable early period, you don't know your own value. You question, what do you need to do to get the other person to stay with you? That's the anxiety of feeling you're not good enough as you are, that you have to prove yourself, and the other person becomes idealized. You tend to be very anxious when you're not in a relationship. So you get into relationships too quickly with inappropriate people who can't give you what you need. And you're reluctant to leave a relationship even when you have lots and lots of evidence that it's not working for you. Those are
Mm-hmm.
all characteristics of an anxious attachment style. So for people like this, one of the things you can do in dating to develop a more secure style is to date multiple people at once to um, dilute the intensity of your need and your idealization for one person in particular. It helps to keep you from attaching too soon before you know if you're actually a match. So there are various other strategies, but depending on your emotional attachment style, you'll date differently, or it's ideal if you learn how to date for your attachment style to become more secure as you date. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You mentioned temperament style. What do you mean by that? I know what you mean, but I don't know if the audience does.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are 8 um, axes of temperament. 4 of them really helpful if you're the same as your partner. 4 of them, it's fine if you're different or the same. It depends on what works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of them where it's really helpful to be similar is, do you prefer variety or do you prefer predictability? If you're with a
Oh.
let's say you prefer variety and your partner prefers predictability. And, you have a standing Saturday night date to go out. And every time, every Saturday rolls around, one of you wants to try somewhere new, and the other one wants to go to the same neighborhood place that's cozy and familiar, and everybody knows their name. So every Saturday night, there's going to be a conflict. And one person could give up what they want, but long term, that's not going to be satisfying. Um, these are areas where compromise will ultimately make you feel like you're not living the life you want to be living.
Even though
Sometimes
compromise is really recommended in relationships?
it totally depends on what the compromise is about. If
Ah,
you compromise your fundamental approach to life, then this is not a relationship that will strengthen and empower you. So, what are the things where you need to compromise, and what are the things that you actually need to stick to your guns and decide this is not a good match for me? So that this is one of the ways in which temperament is hugely helpful, so that before you feel like, oh, I've invested so much time, I've got to stay in this relationship, which is also sort of a fallacy. The amount of time you spent in a relationship shouldn't determine whether you stay in it or not, in my opinion.
mhm. So
So in anything, go ahead. Go ahead.
as you're working with people, there's a lot of learning and a lot of exploring and a lot of learning more about who I am or who they are so that they can show up more authentically and honestly in a relationship. Whether, in dating, we think of the word dating and it's like, oh, I want to get married and all of that. Well, dating is really about learning who a person is and learning if you want to spend time with that person. And it can be male or female, it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
Because for me, it starts out with friendship. And the only way that I can find a friendship relationship to begin with is to date or have a meeting, whatever word we want to use, with
Mm.
that person.
Yeah.
And tell us a success story.
Sure. Yeah. Let me follow up on this temperament idea. I worked.
Okay,
I worked.
perfect.
I worked with a woman in her late 60s, and she had been divorced for about 10 years. She'd barely had a conversation with a man in that time, no less date somebody. And she felt like there was something wrong with her. This was partly an idea she had from her long marriage, where her husband more and more over the years criticized her for limiting him and limiting them
Mhm.
because she wanted predictability. She liked to spend time with the people that they knew in the places that were familiar, having traditions and
Mhm.
rituals that were part of a shared life and a shared community. He always wanted to go somewhere new, try something new, meet someone new. And he basically said, "You're boring and you're keeping me from living my best life." And she felt disrespected, hurt, rejected, etc., and had a hard time finding the value in the face of his criticism, had a hard time finding the value in her own desires. She did feel like there was something wrong with her for not wanting what he wanted. And he, of course, reinforced that. So when we did the temperament analysis over the 8 different areas, and she saw how far he was at the furthest end of wanting variety. She was at the furthest end of wanting
Oh,
predictability.
dear.
And she started to cry and said, "Oh my God, there was nothing wrong with me. We were ultimately incompatible. This was never going to change. He wasn't better. I wasn't worse. We were just different in a way that could never have been resolved." And the blame and the shame just dissolved in that moment.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
It,
it really is about knowing ourselves, but also knowing that our brain has built-in ways of looking at life and experiencing life. And if we don't understand or want to learn about that, and temperament theory is a lot about that, we're going to run into more challenges than we really need to. You know, it's really interesting because what's been coming up for me in the last week or so is the old saying of life is a bowl of cherries. And I love that. And people said, well, why do you like that? Because it's got the pits. I said, yeah, it's got this beautiful, juicy fruit. And then it's got these pits, which are the challenges and the gifts that can bring us to a more knowledgeable, creative place, maybe. And so seeing it as gift rather than as pits where we can, whatever, that's why I like this saying, because that's how I experience life. And I want to consider them challenges instead of bad things, because challenges or gifts has a higher energy. And it's going to encourage me to ask questions and to look at, oh, what's really going on here? And what is there here for me to learn? And I think that's what learning about how your brain functions by taking different brain function tests really helps us move forward in understanding how we show up in the world. Because it ultimately how we want to show up for my good, your good, our good, and the highest good of all. That's where I want to come from. So thank you for sharing that story. What kinds of clients beyond DateWise or within DateWise are typically with the best results? People that are curious, people that want to make change, or people that are kind of following footsteps?
I think the first prerequisite for having a successful therapy experience is believing that you have something to do with the challenges that you're facing, even if you don't know what that is.
Yep.
And that, can cut both ways. On the one hand, you can feel that, like we were talking about before, there's something wrong with you. Oh no, maybe that means I can never make it work. But with the right kind of help, you absolutely can change your patterns. So if you have a sense that you have the capacity with help to change these behaviors, even if you don't know what they are, change this mindset, change your emotional, your emotional background, then I think therapy can be very, very effective. And interestingly, another thing that's really key in making therapy work is feeling like your therapist understands you, of course, but also cares about you. That creates a much more successful outcome. So if you're in a therapy where you don't feel like you're either understood or cared about, then it's probably time to look for a different therapist.
Yeah. And what typical problems do your dating clients think they want to solve and that they actually may need to solve? And are there differences?
Yeah, there absolutely can be differences. Yeah. I mean, again, our culture encourages us to look for things in a partner that have absolutely no connection to how happy you will be. So,
Mm,
how tall are they? What car do they drive? you know, uh, how much money do they make beyond a certain point of not having to worry about money every month? The amount of money somebody has no inherent relationship to happiness. And
right,
so people overvalue certain things and then they undervalue other things. And so if
right.
somebody says, well, I'm not finding enough quality men, what does a quality man mean to you? And what do you really need to be looking for that has a proven relationship to your long term happiness? So, for example, I help the women that I'm working with look for conscientiousness. This is one of the things that's actually proven to lead to a great relationship. So, can somebody roll up their sleeves and work on a problem and feel like this is part of life, this is part of being close with someone? Or do they resent anything that do they resent a woman who says, hey, I think we should talk about this. I think we need to work on this. Someone who's willing to work with you is a prize and creates a much greater chance of having a good relationship because women are the ones who bring up problems in relationships. And so if the man isn't willing to work on it, you're stuck.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that there's a difference depending on age, midlife, elderly, whatever elderly is these days? I don't consider myself elderly at 75 years young. So, it, it all depends on how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but do you find that there's differences based on age, or is it more culture and innate giftedness and background, childhood, that kind of
Yeah. Well, clearly for a lot of women, when they're younger, they're looking for a life mate who they can build a family with. A lot of women want children and they want family, and that is the focus of their search. Who can they partner with to create that? If
Mm-hmm.
you've already had your kids, then you're looking for some different things. I mean, there may be step parent situations. You'd want a good stepfather for your children, certainly if you're still in the process. But if you're past the age where you're raising your kids, there's so much more freedom. Maybe you're going to live together, maybe you're not. Um, maybe you're going to be happy seeing somebody 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe they can have a somewhat different lifestyle, but they're a fantastic conversationalist, and that is enough for you. Or, et cetera, et cetera. There's more of I think, capacity for there to be differences, certain kinds of differences, and still have a satisfying relationship. What you want, I think, there's a lot more flexibility in what can work once you're older and no longer trying to raise a family with someone.
Yeah, I
There's a lot
can
more
see where that makes a difference. The life focus is going to be different. Some of the learning or the questions or the challenges may be the same because they're based on core beliefs and that kind of stuff. And a lot of us have to get through some of that and how we automatically respond to challenges. We can change how we respond to challenges if we sit and notice them and ask who's driving the bus when I'm feeling this way, because a lot of them, in my experience, are based on feelings or emotions. And so there can be some similarities. So it's like interlocked and that kind of thing. But I like the way you shared. There is the difference, and I knew that, and it's nice that you said that. Is there anything else about all of this that you want to share with us, and how Deep Datewise is really a therapy tool for you?
Yeah. Well, I would say an issue that transcends age is trust.
Mm.
Can you open up enough, be vulnerable enough to develop uh, a kind of warmth and interdependence that makes you feel safe, that gives you a sense of belonging, that helps you feel like there's someone in the world who really has your back. And so many people want that, but they are too afraid to trust based on their past experience. And so a common way people deal with not feeling able to trust is to shut down in one way or another. They'll use sex instead of emotional intimacy. They'll end relationships prematurely for things that are not really deal breakers. They'll
Mhm.
confuse what's a deal breaker and what isn't. Or
Mhm.
um, their expectations will be so low that for themselves and for other people that they will stay in relationships that are damaging for far too long. So these are all trust issues. And how to understand yourself and other people's behaviors well enough that you don't have to shut down as a way of protecting yourself, but rather you can use your observation and self knowledge as a way to protect yourself. So
Mm.
that's a really, really huge difference in dating in a sort of empowered way versus an unconscious way.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned sex versus emotional intimacy. Can you speak a little more about that? Especially the emotional intimacy part. We all get the sex part, I think.
Um, if I understand the question right, and correct me if I don't, um, are you saying what does emotional intimacy really require? What is that about?
Yes. Give us a little bit more information about what emotional intimacy looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So, one example is a feeling secure enough within yourself and entitled enough that you can say, this isn't working for me. Uh, I think it would be better if we did X instead of Y. Or would you be able to change this thing? Would you be willing to look at this thing with me? This is a problem for me. So part of it has to do with communicating your needs, which
Mm,
many women are afraid to do.
yep.
Or if they're not afraid to do it, by the time they get to it, there's so much anger, so much resentment, and so much hurt that they communicate it in a way that makes it hard for their partner to actually respond. So, catching your needs early, honoring them early, communicating them skillfully, giving your partner the best possible chance
So true. And that's good for any
to
relationship.
meet your needs. So, that is partial intimacy.
Thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about DateWise, about the gift that you have for our audience, or anything else that you would like to share about overcoming dating challenges in midlife and beyond? Technical difficulties do occur, and I think we'll just call it a day, because we have talked about challenges, we've talked about midlife and beyond, and we've talked about how important it is for us to know ourselves. Because until we're willing, or I'm willing to do and to get to know and to ask who I am and how I respond to any given situation, I can't be present for anyone else. And that can be a gift. That can be a bowl full of cherry pits that I'm not willing to learn from. And I can look back on my life as 50 plus years as a nurse, and traveling, all the traveling that I did, and being a single mom. And from the time my daughter was 5, she's a total gift to me as poor me. Or I can say, oh, look at all of the things I learned, and look at the gifts that my daughter has given me and that my life has given me. And I can walk in gratitude and kindness for people who may be dealing with, because I don't know what people are dealing with when they're in emotion, or when they're feeling sad or lonely or lost, and they're responding in what people call a negative way. They may just be dealing with a cherry pit that they're having a hard time with. I love that. Life is a bowl of cherries, as you can tell. So, it is a lovely way of looking at life when I can be present in any moment, because it truly is, all we have is now. All we have is today, and learning to be the best that I can be, and being willing to say, oops, I made a mistake. I said a word or made a statement to someone that was a little bit hurtful, and that was totally unintentional. And then being honest and truthful about where I am and what I chose to do. That's hard. Walking in honesty, walking in hope, walking in faith and trust. Like Gail talked about how important trust is. And it's trust in ourselves as well as trust in whoever we're creating a relationship with. This has been a wonderful hour with some technical difficulties. Gail may join us again, and if she does, that's great. And if she doesn't, I need to be okay with that. Let's show her gift and her email address for the audience, please. Thank you. If you wish to have a 1-hour consult with Gail, you can sign up at Gail Weiner, LMFT.com. And that's WEINER is her last name. And then LMFT.com. Or you can email her at datewise at iCloud.com. And that is now up on the screen. So collect your 1 hour free gift if you wish with Gail and find out what you may want to learn, what you may want to let go of, and how your life is going and how you want it to go. And it seems like Gail might be back. How beautiful is that? If she is, we will bring her back on again. And if she isn't, that's okay too. Because, we have challenges even in the technology world. And it's about how we choose to walk in that challenge. Isn't that the truth? And Gail had mentioned that there are times that we don't really like seeing what the truth is. That's part of being honest with ourselves. We can play, we can dance. I love when I'm in emotion and I'm just dealing with something that I don't really want to deal with. I'll dance around the house. I will pick up my maracas and play until I can calm down, and I'll also do some heart breathing or sit in my infrared sauna and just relax and calm down so that I can figure out what is it that you're feeling and what's going on. And that takes courage and willingness. And I know that you have courage and willingness. I want to share the promo again for Kathleen Joan. She is coming up as a guest in the future, near future, and you'll get a Reiki healing from her and from me. Hello, my friends. Brenda L. Balding here. The L stands for Love's Inner Voice, the Path of Self-Discovery, my TV show on I Have Today TV network. And I want to tell you about an upcoming show with Kathleen Joan. And we'll be talking about the healing that we receive when we welcome in the divine feminine. And we'll also be sharing a Reiki healing for about 5 to 8 minutes. So join us Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Blessings as you walk through your day. Be well. Bye for now. That was such a beautiful session. Well, every show that I do feels absolutely a gift. And when I can do some healing with people, and I'm hoping that there's all kinds of healing energy going out throughout my show. Let's close with some heart breath, some soft music, and if anything came up with what we discussed today for you, notice your feelings and your body response. Learn from it, ask about it, and if it's appropriate, follow up on it. And if not, let it go during our breathing. So let's do some deep heart breathing. To some soft music. Breathe in. Breathe out. Sometimes I love making a heart where I put my hands together and I breathe in and I create a heart and I put my hands out to the universe, and then I bring any loving energy back to my heart. Breathe out anything that you're ready to release any process, any learning that you've created, and you want to release any energy around it, breathe in loving light from source, whatever that is for you. And breathe out anything that you want to get passed on to that light, that you're ready to release, that you're ready to let go of. Letting go can be one of the hardest things we do. Thank you for being with us today. I've been so blessed. Be well, be strong, be in the now. Know yourself for your good, our good, and the highest good of all. Blessed be. Keep breathing.